He is 91 years old and sitting in a plastic chair outside a physiotherapy clinic in Te Anau, New Zealand, a town of fewer than 800 people at the edge of a lake that is cold enough to kill you in 11 minutes. He is reading a pamphlet about chair exercises for seniors. The photograph on the cover shows a woman in her 60s smiling at a rubber band. He sets the pamphlet down. He looks at his legs. They had carried him 31,000 kilometers of trail in 39 years. He picks the pamphlet back up. That was October 14th, 2022. I am writing this to you at 53, Harold. You are standing in a hut in the Darran Mountains right now. I know what your boots smell like. I know the weight you are carrying on your back. 27 kilograms, including the emergency kit no one has ever needed. Your left knee has been aching since Tuesday, and you have not told anyone because there is no one to tell. You are 3 days from the nearest road. You think the ache is just the weather coming in. You are right about the weather. You are wrong about the knee. This letter is not about the knee, or not only about the knee. It is about what happens 38 years from now when your legs stop doing what you ask and you have to decide whether to negotiate with them or simply stop using them. Half the men I knew at 80 chose to stop. They called it being sensible. Their world got smaller every year after that. Some of them are still alive. Their legs work. They have just decided not to. I did not do that. I want to tell you what I did instead. A journalist came to my daughter's house in Christchurch in March 2023 to write a piece about elderly people who still exercised. My daughter had volunteered me without asking. I drove the 4 hours from Te Anau because I did not want to be rude to my daughter. The journalist was about 30. She had a recorder and a notebook. She asked me what kept me going. I told her I did not know what that question meant. She rephrased it. She asked why I still exercised at my age. I said, because my legs are still here. She wrote something down. I could not tell if she thought this was wise or stupid. I still cannot. Harold, at 53, you will not understand what I am about to describe. That is fine. Read it anyway. At 83, I could not stand up from a chair without using my arms, both arms. Press down, lift, wobble, straighten, every morning. In the kitchen of the same house where Bev and I had lived since 1981. The chair was wooden and the seat was too low, and I knew it was too low, and I kept meaning to add a cushion and never did. Every morning, for 2 years, I used both arms, and I thought, this is just what 83 is. This is the number arriving. My left knee ached, not sharply, dully, the way it had ached in the mountains before rain. My legs had carried me across the Routeburn Track 47 times in my career. 47. I know that number exactly. I logged every traverse in a green notebook that I still have in a drawer in the kitchen. The last time I did the full Routeburn, I was 72. I did not know it was the last time. That is the thing about last times. You never know. At 83, I could not stand from a chair without my arms. I want you to sit with that for a moment. Not with grief. I am not asking for grief. Just sit with it. Notice the distance. There is a physiotherapist in Te Anau named Alison. She is in her 40s. She has worked there for 16 years and she knows most of the older residents by their injuries rather than their names. She knew me as the left knee. Later she called me the Ranger. I do not know at which point the switch happened. Alison did not start me on exercises. She started me on standing. Just standing. Feet flat. No armrests. Stand up. Count to 3. Sit back down. Repeat. I thought this was so simple as to be insulting. I did it anyway. I stood up and counted to 3 and sat back down and did it 12 times, and my legs shook on the 11th repetition. Not badly. A small tremor. The kind of tremor that tells you something is still in there, just buried under 2 years of not being asked. I did this every morning for 3 weeks before anything else was added. Harold, I am going to tell you what the 4 things were. But first you need to understand something about what I had forgotten. In 39 years of ranging, I never once doubted my legs. They were not something I thought about. They were just the mechanism. Cold mornings, wet boots, 27-kilogram pack, 8 hours of terrain. My legs processed all of it without complaint, and I gave them nothing in return. Not consciously nothing. I just did not think about them. They were like a good vehicle. You drive it until it stops. I stopped driving it. That is the honest version. When I retired at 76, I walked less, not as a decision, as a drift. The town is small. Everything is close. You can reach the supermarket and the post office and the pub and the jetty without ever once asking anything real of your legs. So I didn't ask. For 7 years, I didn't ask. Bev had been gone since 2009. I had been in the mountains for most of our marriage, out 4-5 months of the year in the deep sections. She had managed everything at home. She had been fine with it, or she said she had been fine with it. I will never know which is true. That is a different letter. What I know is that when I retired and was finally home, she was not there. And I did not know how to be home without her and without the mountains simultaneously. So I sat. I read. I watched the lake. I let my legs go quiet. The chair stand was first. 12 repetitions, no arms, every morning before breakfast. Within 6 weeks, I stopped thinking about it. My legs remembered the instruction. Muscle doesn't forget. It just goes to sleep. That is what Alison said. I am not sure it is precisely true, but it is close enough. The second thing was a slow walk. Not exercise walking, not pace, just going somewhere on foot that I had been driving to. The supermarket is 600 meters from my house. I started walking it, both ways, 3 times a week. Flat road, nothing remarkable. On the 3rd week, I noticed I was looking at the lake on the way back. Not because I made myself, just I was looking at it. The light on the water at 4:30 in the afternoon in winter is a particular color I do not have a word for. It is not gold. It is something older than gold. My left knee ached, but not with rain in it, with use. That is a different ache. Once you know the difference, you cannot confuse them again. Some of you reading this right now are 70. Some of you are 55 and think this doesn't apply to you yet. It does. Not because you are about to fall apart, because the drift I described, the 7 years of not asking anything of my legs, that drift starts earlier than you think. You stop taking the stairs. You drive a distance you used to walk. You sit for 4 hours and stand twice. You do this for a year, and then another year, and you don't notice because each individual day is nearly identical to the last. The body is not dramatic about this. It does not send a warning. It just quietly agrees to what you are asking of it, which is less. The 3rd thing was balance work. Alison called it single leg stance. I called it standing on one foot like an idiot next to the kitchen bench. 30 seconds on the right, 30 seconds on the left, both hands hovering over the bench but not touching it. Then, when I could do 30 seconds without the bench, I closed my eyes. This was the one that surprised me most. Eyes open, fine. Eyes closed, my body had no idea where it was. Not dangerously, just uncertain. I wobbled. A man who had navigated in the dark in the mountains for 4 decades and in my kitchen with my eyes shut, I could not hold still for 30 seconds. The inner ear degrades with age. The small sensors in the feet that report back to the brain, they slow down. The whole communication system between the ground and the brain gets a longer delay. You do not notice this until you close your eyes. Then you notice it immediately. I practiced this every day for 4 months before I could hold a minute each side with my eyes closed. A minute. That is all it took. A minute, and I felt like I had done something. I have stood on a ridge in Fiordland in 100-kilometer winds, and a minute in my kitchen with my eyes shut felt like something. I am not sure what to make of that. You think you know your body at 83. You have lived in it for 83 years. What else is there to know? Quite a lot, it turns out. The balance work showed me a lag I had not known existed, a delay in the system. The signal from my feet to my brain had slowed the way an old radio station slows. Still there, still broadcasting, but with interference. The interference built up over years of sitting on flat floors and smooth pavements and upholstered chairs. In the mountains, I had been on uneven ground constantly. Every step required a small negotiation between the foot and the brain. That negotiation kept the system sharp. 7 years on flat ground had let it go soft. 30 seconds each leg, eyes open, then eyes closed. Every morning, next to the kitchen bench with my hands hovering and my jaw probably tighter than it needed to be. Within 4 months, I could walk down the gravel track to the jetty in the dark without reaching for anything. This is a small thing, I know that. But the small things are the ones that tell you where you actually are. Harold, you are still in the Darran Mountains. The rain will come tonight. Your left knee knows it. You will wrap your knee and keep moving, and you will not write it in the log, because you never wrote personal things in the log. Only trail conditions and weather and wildlife counts. You will do this for 23 more years. I am not telling you to stop. The mountains were not a mistake. The mistake was a different thing. It was treating your body as a vehicle rather than a companion. You ran it. You did not know it. By the time I met Alison at 83, I was learning the names of muscles I had used for 8 decades without ever acknowledging. The gluteus medius, the tibialis anterior. I had been using these since I was 7 years old, and I could not have pointed to them on a map of my own body. Alison pointed to them. She showed me where the signal was dropping out. The fourth thing was the simplest, and I resisted it the longest. Stretching. Not yoga, not anything performed, just lying on the floor every morning for 11 minutes and moving slowly through the hips and the lower back and the calves. Nothing dramatic, the kind of movement that feels like very little while you are doing it. I resisted it for 3 months because it seemed passive. I had spent my career doing things, moving through terrain, solving problems. Lying on the floor and breathing and doing nothing seemed like the opposite of all that. Alison asked me, "When did you last feel what your body was doing?" I thought about it. I said, "Probably 1987. She did not laugh. She just said, "Right." So 11 minutes. 11 minutes on the floor. Every morning. For 11 minutes, I learned where my hips were tight and where my calves had gone rigid, and where the years of heavy packs had left a permanent shortness in the left side of my lower back that I had been compensating for so long I no longer knew I was compensating. The body adapts. It works around problems. The problems accumulate. One day, the adaptations fail. I found 1987 on the floor of my kitchen in 2022. By the time I was 87, I could stand from that low wooden chair without my arms. I know that sounds small. It is not small. I cannot fully explain why it is not small. But you will understand this if you have ever lost a thing and then found it again. Not the same, not new, but yours again in a way that makes you notice it for the first time. My left knee still aches before rain. I notice it now, not just as weather data, as the knee, my knee, that has been doing this for 40 years and will probably do it for whatever years remain. I'm going back now, Harold. Back to the hut in the Darran Mountains. Back to the 27-kilogram pack and the wet boots and the green logbook. You won't remember this letter. That is not how it works. But on October 14th, 2022, a plastic chair outside a physiotherapy clinic in Te Anau, you will pick up a pamphlet with a woman on the cover smiling at a rubber band. Don't set it down. The legs that carried you 31,000 kilometers across that country, they are not finished. They are just waiting to be asked again.